everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is day 8 in the Countdown to Christmas 2021 series, and we're going to be making these 2 full panel shaker cards that are made with Tulle. So to create the background for these, we're going to be doing one of my favorite techniques on craft cardstock, which is white pigment ink with a ink on top of it, so it gives a little bit of a shadow. What we're going to do is we're going to put a layer of white pigment ink down first through the stencil, and I'm using MFT's Sweet Tooth pigment ink with this ink blending brush. It has a little foam on the end of it, and I'm just pouncing it on. The reason that I'm not swiping it like I normally would is because these trees have some sharp edges on them and the foam just kept getting stuck. So I found the best way to apply these was to kind of pounce it around like you would paint through a stencil, and it worked really, really well. So we're going to ink this one up with the white pigment ink, and this is a tree set from, I believe this one is from Sassy and Crafty. I think they actually both are from Sassy and Crafty, which unfortunately is a company that doesn't exist anymore, but she has some really, really cute stuff, and I love these stencils. I think this one's perfect for Christmas. So now you can see this one was a little bit easier because there weren't the jagged edges, and I am just taking that blending foam and going over all of the images, re-inking the blending foam fairly frequently because I want to have a lot of ink down there. Now, pigment ink is a little bit different than hybrid ink or the dye inks, and it takes a little bit longer to dry. So after I'm done these 2 panels, I'm actually going to heat set both of them to make sure that the pigment ink is dry before we go on to the next technique, because if you don't, you're going to smear the ink on the next step. So you want to make sure both panels are dry, and the tree one had a little bit more ink on it, so I left that one to the side to dry a little bit longer even after heating it, because there was a couple of spots that still didn't dry, and I also didn't want to warp the cardstock a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the other panel. So I am taking some Distress Oxide in Barn Door, and I'm going to cover the entire thing. You can do this if you have a small brush. You can ink up and only do a few in red, and then you can do some green and blue or whatever colors you want to do. I decided just to do the whole entire thing in red. It was going to be easier. Plus, I didn't have a small blending brush for my oxides. I have 2 sizes, the one that I got off Amazon and then this size one. So I generally use this size blending brush for everything because it's usually doing a full background. So you can see I'm just swiping over it, and then when I am finished with this inking up the whole panel, you're gonna see that when I pull it up, there is a slight white outline, and you can shift it up, down, to the left, to the right, however you want it to look. You can see that looks so cool there. So there's a little shadow behind it. There's a ton of ink left on the stencil, so I cut a 4x4 square of watercolor cardstock because that was a scrap I had, like a 4x8, and I decided to do 2 of them. So I'm just running my hands over it to get the impression of the stencil. So it's going to be a reverse image, and I thought that was really, really cool. I actually did something with it, and I'll probably use it for a card. So I'm not going to tell you what I did, but I really like the way that came out. So now we're going to use some Pine Needles Distress Oxide and go over these trees. This blending brush has a little bit of a dome to it, so it didn't get caught on the brushes. So you can see that I'm doing the circular motion for here instead of the pouncing motion that I did with the blending foam, because that's flat and this one has a little bit of a dome. So it was easier, was able to glide above the stencil rather than to get stuck in it. So after I'm done inking up all these trees, I'm also going to do the same thing with a 4x4 panel of watercolor cardstock. I'm going to put some water down on it and pick up the ink, but I also took a piece of scrap paper and put it over, and this one came out a lot better. This one had a better impression than the first one, or I put a paper towel down. So I should have done that with the first one, but I couldn't find my paper towels. So I am also going to be using this in a background for probably for a future card or a tag or something. So I like the way this one came out much better. I'm just pressing down on it just to make sure that all of the ink got transferred over onto the sheet. So isn't that such a cool reverse effect? So if you have extra ink on your stencils, don't waste them. You can do something like that. Doing art journals, scraps for tags or anything like that. Okay, so now moving on to the actual shaker piece. So I cut a piece of tulle that was a little bit larger than the card base, and I am going to, or the background panel, and I'm going to put ATG down on 3 sides of it, pull the tulle over, and create a pocket at the top. Then we're going to be able to stick all of the shaker elements down into the pocket at the top, the little panel that we've left open, and then close it up and then put it on a card base. So when you're doing this, one of the things that I learned is I cut a little bit too close to the corners. You want to miter the corners just so that it's not so bulky in the back, but what you don't want to do is cut right up to the paper, because then there's a little hole at the bottom. I had to actually move the tool and make it a little bit tighter when I did this, because a couple of the very, very small pieces had fallen out. So once this is done, we're going to move on to picking out the colors, or the sparkle blends. So this is my favorite part, and one of the things that I like doing the most is mixing and matching sparkle blends, because I think it's so fun and there's so many different amazing blends that you can put together. The sparkle blends that I decided to mix together for the first card are Snow Pals, Milk and Cookies for Santa, Silver Bells, Old Saint Nick, and Clearly in Love. You can see these blends are absolutely adorable. They have little clay pieces in it, like that Santa, the snowflake. There are some jimmies, there are some shiny pieces, there are ones that are sparkly that have some glitter in them. Amber finds some of the most amazing pieces to go in the blends. So this one I actually went with more of a silver, red, and white theme. So you'll see the pieces that I pick out are in that color palette. I was gonna add a little bit of green because I like the red and the green together, but I thought it was a little bit distracting because there was a lot of red in there, and I think that the green just didn't go well with this. So I just decided to stick with that color palette. And once I was done with picking out all of the sparkle blends that I wanted, so there's this set, I opened up the top and I just dumped those pieces in. Absolutely fabulous. It shakes perfectly. I did add a little bit more because I didn't think there were enough shaker pieces in there. It probably was fine. I didn't show you guys that, but I did add a little bit more from some of the blends. And now we're going to close it up and then shake it to make sure that nothing falls out. And look at that, a tulle shaker card. So this is the first time I had ever made one. My friend Allison Haikila from Allison Haikila Designs did one on one of her lives for Sparkle Blends, and I was in love with it. And I'm like, couldn't think of anything that I really wanted to do for a card. I'm like, I need to do this one. So there it is on the red card base, and you see me shaking it. And now we're gonna get ready to do the green card. So I didn't have any green tulle, but I did have this white tulle. And I had this I made tulle skirts for my nieces, for the twins, as well as for Allie and then one of her friends. They were Batman and Robin one year for Halloween. So I made some Halloween costumes, and then I used some for my sister-in-law's baby shower. We made the pom-poms. So I had a ton lying around. So that's what I use them for. Okay, so the sparkle blends I used for the tree card are called Halle Berry, Oh Christmas Tree, and Show Me the Money. Now, Show Me the Money obviously is not a Christmas one, but the colors worked absolutely perfectly. Did the same thing that I did, mixed those 3 sparkle blends in that little tray, put everything in the tulle, and then I am going to seal it off and then put it on a green card base. So that is how you make the full panel tulle shaker cards, and I absolutely love them. I had so much fun with it. I will definitely be making more of these. These may be some of the Christmas cards that go out to some of my friends. So if my friends and family are watching this, you may be getting a full panel tulle shaker card. So I hope that you like it. I did show you there was one thing that my friends who know me, there was one of those little stars in that bin when I started, and it was driving me crazy because it didn't come out in any of the blends, and it was just, it's still there. So anyway, I'm putting the front panel down onto the card. I put ATG on both sides of it because there was a little bit of warping. So those are the cards. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below. And I will see you again soon for another video. Bye!